Welcome to Homeschool Conversations with Humility and Doxology, a series of conversations with real-life homeschool moms, dads, and other educators. I'm Amy Sloan, a second-generation homeschooling mom of 5, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. You can find the show notes for this interview and all the other interviews in the series at humilityanddoxology.com. Today, I'm joined by Christine Zell. Christine, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Well, Christine is a homeschooling mom to 4, wife to her high school sweetheart, and author of the new Rabbit Trails Through Literature. She believes that homeschooling adventures can happen anywhere, whether that's within a book you get lost in while in your schoolroom, while gathered on the couch, or out on a grand road schooling trip. Come experience this bit of life with her on her blog, This Bit of Life, or connect with her on social media. So Christine, I can't wait to hear a little bit about your family and you and just how you guys came to homeschooling.
Yeah, so never imagined that we'd be a homeschooling family at all. My husband and I, like you already said, are high school sweethearts. So we met years and years and years ago and got married very young. He's in the Marine Corps. And so waited and said, okay, I'm done with this being apart nonsense. So we got married. And so we were actually living in California at the time when my son was about 3 years old, and they were passing some legislation that didn't jive with us into their education system. And I was already kind of like, it would be kind of cool to homeschool. And my husband was like, you're crazy. And then as soon as they passed that legislation, he was just like, maybe this is an option for us. Maybe this is something we want to do. And so they had charter schools in California where you could do a homeschool charter. So we were able to homeschool 5 days a week at home, but be supported by the charter school as far as curriculum and all of that goes. So we started out our journey that way. And my son, I believe, either did kindergarten first or kindergarten first and second. I can never remember when we actually stopped because we thought we were going to move, and then just kidding, because that's the way the military works. And so I said, you know what? I was planning on stopping the charter anyway. Let's just go ahead and give it a go on our own. And we definitely never looked back from there. So yeah, so it kind of went from, not even thinking about homeschooling to we're doing this.
Did you know anyone in your community who homeschooled, or were you kind of all on your own?
So not at the time. It wasn't until we joined a local homeschool park day group, and then that exploded because it started with just a handful of us, and we didn't go a ton because by then I had my second, and just being at the parks with littles is hard. So especially when you have a little 1-year-old trying to get onto everything, it was hard to talk with the mom. And so then as he got older, we started going more and more, and the group completely took off and went crazy because more legislation was passed in California that people didn't like, that made more homeschoolers. And so, our group got to where it was uncontrollable. There was not enough room at the parks for us.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, it was really, really awesome. And so we did end up having a phenomenal and now here in North Carolina, we've kind of recreated the same thing with the homeschool park day group here locally that has also kind of exploded, that we typically have at least 10 families that join, except right now, of course.
Right.
We're missing our park days. But yeah, we normally have on average about 10 families that come every single week. And it is just kids playing at the park and moms sitting and chatting and giving each other support and just getting that community that we need.
That is amazing. So I am a second generation homeschooler. And when my oldest was, first entering those ages where I was all gung-ho and excited to start homeschooling, I started looking for what I remembered from my growing up years was very much like what you're describing. it was more like a homeschool support group. And so like the moms would get together and have relationship and friendship and support, and the kids would play at parks or do field trips together. And I actually really struggled to find something like that. It felt like everything had sort of turned into like co-ops where it was all more formalized and an all-day commitment and classes. And I was very blessed to find one in the area that really is like monthly moms meetings and field trips and play dates, which feels just like what I wanted. I wanted to be able to do my own thing with the actual homeschool part, but still have the friendship and the relationship time.
Absolutely. And we totally just created it. My neighbor and I both came from California to out here. So we were both a part of the group out in California, and we knew that there was nothing like that here in our immediate area. And so she was like, awesome, we'll be there every week. So we just kind of, took what we had in California and transplanted it here, and it has taken off because there's a lot of homeschoolers that don't necessarily want it in an actual co-op setting. So
that is awesome. Well, you talked a little bit about how your homeschool approach has changed over the years, because you started off going through the charter school and then forged your own path. Tell me about what are the grade levels or age levels of your kids now, and how would you kind of describe your homeschool personality or philosophy?
So I have a baby in my belly, and I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old and 11-year-old. So they're both basically just about to promote to 3rd grade and 7th grade, because they're both about to change to the next age as well. So, and then obviously the 2-year-old's just there to help create chaos and fun in our day. So we started out very traditional because we were going through a charter. So we did what they asked of us to do, and we had a little bit of freedom in like, I don't like this history, so can we get this other history curriculum? And they would do that for us. But it was still for the most part following what they were doing. And so when I ditched it, I was still trying to kind of recreate school at home, and it wasn't working, and it created a lot of stress. And so slowly over the years, I started going, why are we doing this topic when we don't need to be? If it's not working for us, why don't we do this instead? And so my title for us now is kind of crazy. We're definitely relaxed homeschoolers. We're definitely eclectic. We have a little bit of that Charlotte Mason flair, and then we love doing road schooling as much as we can as well. So we're a really big melting pot of different homeschooling methods in our house, but definitely with the relaxation and just kind of just letting interest and stuff leading way.
That's one of the things I love about homeschooling is just how much variety there is and how much freedom we have, even to change things over the years. And I feel like a lot of times I learn just as much from homeschoolers who do things differently than I do, as I do from homeschoolers who might on the surface, think we're more similar, because we see like we have different strengths and weaknesses. And I love being able to learn from all the different styles and approaches to homeschooling. It's really fun.
Yeah. And you never know, like for one kiddo, even if you have the same approach, it may totally work for one kid and totally not work for another. So we're using 2 different math curriculums in our home, and, just doing for whatever works for whatever kid. So
that is awesome. Well, I know one thing that you talk a lot about is wanting to include adventure in our homeschool, and you mentioned road schooling. So what are some ways we can include adventure in our homeschool? Like maybe at a basic level, like right now, we're all kind of stuck at home, so we can't necessarily go out somewhere. So what are ways we can do it in normal, regular, inside life? And then what are some like dreamy, big things we try to once we can leave our houses?
I know. So we've been doing a lot of the live, either Facebook videos or YouTube videos, things like that, especially zoos right now have been doing a lot of amazing interactions with their animals. A big one we've been following is the Cincinnati Zoo in Ohio. And every single day, I think it's at 3 o'clock, they do a live animal encounter. And they've done it since like the very first day of lockdown. And so that is a really easy way to do an adventure without even leaving your couch. So that's been something we've been implementing a lot just over the past few months now, which is so crazy to say, months instead of just weeks. But even just in books, I know that we will just pull out a book that we absolutely love and make it into a lesson. And then that ends up being so fun and opens up so much for us. And so it's extremely doable for everyone to do in their homeschool. Because it's just literally just taking your kid's interest, which is whatever book it might be or whatever topic that book is about, and then making it into an adventure, whether it's because you are doing something local, like going on a nature walk based off of whatever topic it might be, or finding local museums. Oh my goodness, here on the East Coast, North Carolina is ridiculous with the amount of history that there is. So that's been a lot of fun to be like, we have an Underground Railroad historic site that is set in a caboose, and the couple that runs it is absolutely amazing. And so we drove an hour and a half to this little caboose to see their little museum, and then I ended up down the road that there was what's the word, because they invented the word for it, estuarium. Totally invented it. That's their own key or coin term that they made. And so it's all about all of these different animals and birds and everything here in coastal North Carolina. And we didn't know it was there until we just went down the street from this other museum. And so just finding things you never know that might be local to you, and they end up kind of snowballing as well, because they have all these other resources that are right by them saying, yes, if you're coming to our historical society, this person's coming and doing a talk about this topic, and then this and this. And it's like, well, we can spend like 3 months just at this one museum, listening to all these different topics. And so it's really not hard to find those adventures, whether it is just sitting on your couch reading a book and then doing some cool craft project because of it, or going down a rabbit trail and, learning other topics off of it, or just, exploring your local community or country if you're able to, because that's our favorite, is traveling all over the place. And so I can talk a little bit about that road schooling now. Is when we took a trip, we moved from California to North Carolina, we went ahead and took 3 weeks over the move to travel to different national parks. And we do have an RV. So we were just RVing our way across the country, and it was absolutely amazing. And we completely fell in love with it. And so my husband has less than 2 years now until he retires from the Marine Corps, and we completely plan on full-time RVing and road schooling, at least for a year. That's our game plan now, is for a year, and then we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, going to those different national parks, going to different historic landmarks. I mean, my son's going to be starting his freshman year in high school while we're traveling, and I'm already like, we've got U.S. history and geography covered. We're going to add in a few books, and that is going to be what's on his transcript, is U.S. history and geography for that year, because he's going to learn way more than you ever could being at home by being able to do these travels and, just making sure that we're going to those historic sites and whatnot. And so especially utilizing the Junior Ranger program has been absolutely huge for us. My kids have nearly like 30 badges now. And that's something else you can even do at home, is they have a good handful that you can earn at home without ever leaving your house, and going through their workbooks that they have. And a lot of times they'll say, visit this website or whatever to kind of do whatever virtual tours they have, or book recommendations. And you can mail in your little packet and they'll mail you back a badge, which is really fun. So we've done that actually for the Underground Railroad, because after we visited that little caboose museum, we started looking into it more and said, oh, I wonder if the Junior Rangers can do it, whether you're traveling all over the country or whether you're wanting to stay at home and earn whatever ones they have at home. So yeah, we are big travel buffs. We love it.
That is so cool. So I love Junior Rangers. I grew up doing the Junior Ranger programs at the parks, and I've done them with the kids, but I did not know that there were some that you could do from home. So that is something I'll definitely have to check out this summer.
Yeah.
Well, in order to have the freedom to be able to explore and follow the rabbit trails. And even like when you were saying you went on this field trip and that led to this other fun field trip, you have to have created or planned ahead for space in your homeschool so that you're not doing it thinking like, oh no, I'm getting behind, or not feel like you've given yourself, I guess, the freedom to have the space. So I know that you talked about having a stress-free homeschool, and homeschool can feel overwhelming. So what are some tips or strategies to be able to kind of do this with joy and peace and not stress?
Yeah. So I actually, because you are so organized and send out some stuff beforehand, and that question really struck me. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like this really needs to be talked about. And so I went live last week to really go deep with my audience about it, because I feel like there are so many outside stressors. Like being a mom is stressful. And I think that that is something that a lot of people confuse with homeschooling, is that they're like, oh, well, homeschooling is just going to be way too overwhelming then. And it's really not true, because the stressors that we feel as homeschool moms is just simply being a mom full time. And I really don't think hardly any of it has to do with our homeschooling so much as it does just we are with our children way more than parents who send their kids off to public or private school. So that's obviously going to create more stress. But that's just normal child raising stress and not so much homeschooling stress. So basically just knowing what works for you and your family can definitely lower that stress, because you're not then trying to conform to something that's not going to fit for you. So if you know what homeschooling method is a good fit for your family, and only choosing curriculum options that go within that method can significantly reduce that stress in your home. And sometimes it can take a few years to figure that out, and sometimes you're going to continue to adjust because your kids are growing and changing, and that's okay too. And I am a huge kind of what's the word I'm trying to look for? I am the culprit of buying stuff and 3 weeks later throwing it out because I'm very
shiny.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that sounds like it's going to be amazing. Use it for 3 weeks. I'm like, this is terrible for us. And so I'm not afraid to contact a company and say, this is not working for us. Can I return it for a refund, or at least return part of it? Or simply saying, you know, if it's an expensive item, simply saying, well, that's just, oops.
Lesson learned. Move on.
Yes. And that's something my husband's been really supportive of too, is that he's just like, this is our kids' education. Like if we're spending money on it and it doesn't work out, that is okay. And because I used to be so, we're spending our hard-earned money on this, we need to use it. And he's just like, if it's not working, that's ridiculous. Like move on, you know? And so I have just made sure in our homeschool that we are just using what's working for us, and what's not working for us, we pass on, or we try to resell, or I try to contact the company for a refund or partial refund. And that reduces so much stress, just knowing your method, finding the curriculum that works for you. I know for us, I very much pick and choose even what lessons we may use out of a curriculum. So even though I might buy a full year history curriculum, we may only use a quarter of it. And then we find something else that we're like, ooh, let's dive into this topic instead. And we go into that topic instead. And so you don't necessarily have to follow a timeline, which is something I really struggled with at first, that I wanted to learn all of history from this time to the present. And we could only follow that timeline. And now I'm like, we can absolutely jump around, because sometimes we're like, I'm sick of learning about US history. Let's jump into Egypt or whatever. And so I just allowed that in our homeschool to be like, let's bounce around from topic to topic, because then it's something new and exciting that's happening in our homeschool. And so that tends to reduce the stress as well, because then my kids are excited to do something new, kind of it's that shiny new object, you know? And so that's reduced a lot of stress in our home personally. But yeah, just finding what works for you and what works for your family, what method you resonate with the most, is just going to make your homeschool such a pleasant experience and reduce so much of that stress.
I love so much of what you just said. I just like, I'm trying to like hold back. Like I can't like have echoes in the microphone
Totally,
here.
me.
No, but first of all, oh my goodness, yes. I often think about like the hardest part of homeschooling is the parenting. And we're just parenting all the time. It all is interwoven. So that's really the tough part, but it's also the best part of homeschooling because you get to know your children in such a deep way. But what I loved about what you said is not like, oh, everyone needs to do history this way, or everyone needs to change up their curriculum, every few months or whatever. But you kept emphasizing like you need to find what is best for your family and then stay on your own path and not get distracted by, oh, well, that seems like a good thing that's working for this other family. Because there are so many good things. We are incredibly blessed right now to have so many opportunities and resources available to us as homeschool moms. So it's not really like we're choosing between like a good option and a bad option. It's like, here are 25 great options. And that can almost be its own kind of struggle. Yeah. So just knowing like, it's okay if you're choosing to do this, it does mean you're choosing not to do those other things, but that's good. You have to find what works for your family. There's not just one right way to homeschool, right?
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so one thing I have discovered as I have followed you online is that you and I share a common love for picture books. And I would love to hear just what are some of your family's favorite picture books, or even just your favorite picture books. And then how do you guys use picture books as a jumping off point for rabbit trails? Because some people may think like, oh, picture books, once you start growing up, you don't need picture books anymore. I'm always like, you're never too old for picture books.
I know. So, okay. So I actually asked my kids what their favorite picture books were, and they gave me the, I don't know.
Did you read picture books?
Helpful right now. So I just know the ones that we've been using with my curriculum, Rabbit Trail through literature, my kids have completely been in awe with. And I have chosen purposely a lot of Caldecott winners because they are known for the beautiful artwork. And so even the ones that don't have a lot of words are sometimes the most captivating because they just have the most gorgeous artwork inside of them. And so I would say some of my personal favorites, especially the ones I've just discovered while building this curriculum that I never even knew existed before now. One of them is Crichter. And that is actually the first book I have in my curriculum because I'm just like, this is just the sweetest, cutest little book ever. And it's all about this little snake that this teacher in France got as a pet. And she was a teacher at like an elementary school. And so the snake would go Boy Scouts and do all this other cute stuff. And then she had someone break into her home, and Crichter's the one that saved her. So that saves the day. And it was just such a cute book. And I think there's videos like all over because it was a Reading Rainbow book as well. But people have been loving it, and that's become like one of my new favorites too. And so it's the one I always like to point out because I'm like, first of all, it's the first one in the curriculum, super easy. But second of all, it's just a really, really sweet story. And then another favorite is called The Little Island. And I honestly wasn't sure how other people would respond to this book, but everyone's loved it. And it's about this tiny little island and kind of the different aspects of it as far as what lives there, kind of what plants are there, but it's not like in detail like any type of biology book or anything. And then like this cat comes over on a boat and visits, and then they're trying to talk to the cat about the island and whatnot. And we totally went on rabbit trails learning about habitats and ecosystems based off of this book. And with Crichter, we totally went on rabbit trails just in snakes in general. And then you can talk about reptiles and amphibians. And so it's really kind of easy in a way to be like, oh, this is about this, let's dig deeper into it. And one of my favorites that like I would have never thought of if we weren't doing this pandemic thing right now is there's a book called Stand Back for the Elephant, I'm Going to Sneeze. And it's a really, really silly book about how this elephant's going to sneeze, but if he does, he's gonna like blow the feathers off the birds and, do all this crazy stuff that's gonna happen. And I'm like, how on earth am I going to do a rabbit? Keep talking about animals because a lot of the books deal with animals. So I've used that a lot. And I'm like, germs. The elephant's trying not to sneeze. Let's talk about germs. Let's talk about, finding germs on our hands and all of that, and doing fun experiments to go along with germs. Easy thing to do, and it's a really fun science topic to dig deep down into. So it's just, you can find the silliest topics based off of just these beautiful picture books and go down into history and science and all kinds of other crazy subjects.
I love that because so much of it just happens organically. It flows from the story or from the illustrations. It's so much fun. And one of the things I love when there's like, especially if there's like a favorite family picture book that we read over and over and over again, I love seeing how it then is worked out in my children's independent play, where they start playing elements from the picture book, but then putting their own twist on it. So it's like pre-writing skills too, and storytelling, and just creativity. It's just beautiful. One of my favorites is actually one I did not find until I was an adult. And it's Roxaboxen by, I think, Barbara Cooney. Have you read this one?
I have not.
Oh, it is so beautiful. All right, when the library's open, got to put this one on your list.
Okay.
So that has become a real favorite. And I love that, and it's an old book too. And I love that there are just so many beautiful ones that you can't run out of good, worthwhile picture books, good stories.
Oh yeah, there's so many out there, and people are constantly writing them. So there's always going to be new ones too that will eventually make the classics list.
Yeah. I interviewed Missy Andrews in the Homeschool Conversation series a few weeks ago from Center for Lit, and they actually even encourage, like, if you're trying to introduce literary analysis to like a high school student, they actually encourage you to start first with like a Bedtime for Francis or Bread and Jam for Francis, a basic picture book, because a really excellent picture book has all the same elements of a story that a work of more complex literature might have. So it's a very easy way to start teaching your child how to think about what is happening, who's the main character of the story, and what do they want, and why can't they get it, and all those things. And so that's another thing, because I know you have a wide range of ages like I do. So I love with picture books that it's something we can all sit around together during morning time or whatever, and everybody from my almost 15-year-old down to the 5-year-old can all engage in the same story and feel like they're a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Christine, where can people find you online if they want to come have some rabbit trails through literature?
So I'm on Facebook the most. So just facebook.com/thefitoflife. So that is a very easy place to find me. I also have a group called Relaxed Homeschoolers that you can join the group. And I just made one for rabbit trails. I think it was Saturday, 2 days ago, because I was like, man, okay, I really should probably have a group just for rabbit trails through literature. So it's just Rabbit Trails Through Literature Fan Club, I think is what I ended up calling it for now. I'm also on Instagram, and I do have a YouTube channel as well that you can listen to me just jabber on about random subjects and topics. And then, of course, Pinterest. I love sharing stuff on Pinterest as well.
Perfect. And I'll have all those things linked up in the show notes so that people can just click through and find you in all the places.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for coming and chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.